Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the delegation, Carolyn. In terms of the infrastructure deficit that you're referring to, I mean, I represent a suburban ward, so I live this day and night with, the horizontal growth that we're experiencing, and certainly firsthand, I can tell you that infrastructure investment is expensive in order to build the greenfield. But the alternative is to build vertically in the downtown core and on transit hubs. And it would strike me that when we look at Lansdowne, we're looking at precisely the type of site that you're referring to when we're talking about vertical development. So would you have comment to that? Because, in terms of where is there existing infrastructure, there's existing infrastructure on that site.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. Sorry, there's an announcement going on in the background. I assume you can hear it just as well as I can. So
I don't want you to miss your flight, Carolyn.
No, I've got a little bit of time, but I know it's a really important question that you asked. And I think Neil alluded to it earlier. We need to make use of existing infrastructure in this city. The analogy that I would use would be to say, if you had a manufacturing plant and you were only using 50% of the capacity, suddenly you've got a very large new order for more, equivalent to housing demand. Would you build a new manufacturing plant right next door and use that? Would you use the existing capacity that you have today? I think you would use the existing capacity that you have today as much as you absolutely could before spending money on additional infrastructure. It's a really simple analogy, but I think it's relevant. So yes, we need to be looking at every opportunity we can to use that existing infrastructure so that we can focus the resources that we have on renewal of existing infrastructure. So yes, that means building up and density around hubs and transit zones, but it also means, and our comprehensive zoning bylaw is going to be a review, is going to be a very important part of saying, how do we build density, not just at hubs, although that's very important, but also within our neighborhoods in a way that will fit into those neighborhoods. So I think those are both really important things, but I don't see how we can afford to keep extending our infrastructure and building out. Yes, we have to build up. We also have to fill in and make best use of the available land that we have.
Thank you, Carolyn. In terms of, the comment on spending our money wisely today, a concern that I would have is when we look at, last year's construction inflation costs, it went up 7.1%. The year prior to that, we were up 12.5%. My concern would be any further delays in this process will, in fact, do the opposite. It will cost us more. I guess the last comment that I would have, Carolyn, for you to speak to is when I've heard from the business community in Ottawa. So I know they delegated, at the fulsome debate that we had last year on Lansdowne, we heard the Ottawa Board of Trade, we heard Invest Ottawa, we heard the Glebe Community Association, we heard the Bank Street Community Association. We heard, from the business communities talking about the second order economic impacts that will come to the city of Ottawa through drawing in young professionals, through giving an opportunity for people to come to the city of Ottawa to have a rallying call for them to want to be in this city. And I don't know that I heard that in your delegation. So I appreciate that there is a sticker shock to, some of the costs that go with the outset. But I think that there's a need to aptly underscore the right side of the balance sheet on that. Would you have a comment to that, Carolyn?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I am very much in favor of I was going to say I'm very much in favor of economic development. I understand I come from a business background, infrastructure development. So I understand all that, and I do think that's important, but I don't think that throwing huge amounts of money at a project like this is the answer. That's not necessarily the easy thing is to throw a lot of money at a big problem and say, well, this is how we'll solve it. But I think, and I've talked about this at length, a number of times, including in November of last year. This project has such significant cost to the city. It will be building in. I mean, there's been talk about how Ottawa, we now have these structural deficits represented by the huge debt of the LRT. It's not like we just had a bad year. And we have a huge budget deficit as a result. We now have these structural deficits baked in to our budget. There are things that we just can't avoid. Going ahead with Lansdowne will continue to bake in a huge debt component that we will be on the hook for no matter what. And there are considerable, in my view, considerable financial risks associated with this project. And I've talked about the risks around the retail leasing, which are even more so, I would strongly suggest, given the prospects, the good prospects, the positive prospects of the NHL team and the Senators team moving to a downtown location. And
Thank you very much, Carol.
sports and entertainment organization being, grown up around that, it will directly compete with Lansdowne. And Lansdowne having one leg tied behind, one arm, tied behind his back because it's not supported by the LRT. So that to me screams of a risk of a white elephant.